welcome to today's Help Desk, Meet the Consultant. My name is Mix Lydia Tyler. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the programs manager at Arts Business Collaborative. We are super excited to have everyone here watching this conversation live or watching the recording later. Just a little bit about what is Help Desk before we get started tonight. Help Desk is a free business consulting program offered by Arts Business Collaborative. Over the course of 3 months, we've been offering pro bono consulting, free business courses through our learning partnership with Creative Study, and live in-depth conversations with our Arts Business Network of consultants. This conversation tonight is part of our Meet the Consultant Live. And if you would like to sign up for Help Desk, it is a simple 4-step process. You can go to our website at www.artsbusinesscollaborative.com/programs/helpdesk and register. Takes 10 minutes. And then you can start accessing the tools from Creative Study, the courses on Creative Study. The link is there on the webpage, as well as start signing up for one-on-ones with our consultants. These are free 1-hour meetings that you can schedule in at your leisure with your availability in mind and get on their calendar to start helping you support questions and any needs that you may have, technical needs you may have. So again, if you are interested in signing up for Help Desk, please check out our website at www.artsbusinesscollaborative.com/programs/helpdesk. Having a hard time breathing today. All right. Help Desk would like to thank our sponsors. ABC Help Desk is made possible thanks to the generous support of M&T Charitable Foundation, Ameriprise Financial, and the Mertz Gilmer Foundation. We also would like to give a special thanks to Brooke Ottaway of the Nicholas B. Ottaway Foundation. Up next, ABC also provides fiscal sponsorship with technical support. Our FS Plus program is unique in that we offer not only fiscal support for organizations who are unincorporated or sole proprietorships by using an umbrella for your organization's legal status that allows you to apply for grants and other types of funding that may not be available to you because your organization is not a 501c3. But also, we offer funder research, as well as programmatic check-ins. ABC program staff and or the CEO will discuss project goals and ways to connect and support you with our consultants. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, please reach out to us at programs@artsbusinesscollaborative.org. That's again, email us at programs@artbusinesscollaborative.org. And now, without further ado, I would love to introduce our consultant for this evening. Amanda Figueroa is the co-founder and is the co-founder of Brown Art Inc. and a marketing and automation consultant. Amanda hails from El Paso, Texas, and is a web and graphic designer with a Harvard doctoral candidate, an artist, and consultant, as well as co-founder of BAI. Through her work as a resource manager for BAI or Brown Art Inc., Amanda's belief is that art is a tool to fight economic injustice, and it is central to her work in leading fundraising and other initiatives to unlock institutional resources for artists. Her superpower is systems thinking, giving advice on how to streamline, design, and automate your business's marketing and communication. Her why is driven by the desire to help clients take things off their plate, so that they can do what is really important. As co-founder of Brown Art Inc., she works to build a sustainable and inclusive arts ecosystem for artists, creatives, and arts workers. I will now stop sharing my screen and welcome Amanda to the space.
So happy to be here.
Thank you so much for this conversation. I'm excited. If I can talk straight today, I'm having a little problems getting my words together, but thank you.
we're going to do our best. It's the feeling, it's the emotion.
That's right. Oh my goodness. So I am so intrigued. I'm going to start off by learning more about Brown Art Inc. and how you and your co-founder, who we spoke with last week, Raven Ruffin, got started, and what drove you to really start working in this way with arts communities.
Sure. So I'm sure Raven gave you a wonderful pitch on Brown Art Inc. last week, so I won't rehash all of the details, but we are a creative studio that supports artists and arts organizations doing what we call community critical work in their local areas. For us, it became really important to emphasize community critical work, by which we mean, of course, the work that sustains collaborative, creative, and world-changing practices in and around the art world. It was important for us to emphasize that because we noticed that when it came to receiving funding, when it came to receiving support, when it came to receiving resources, a lot of people at this grassroots level, local organizations, local artists, were actually taking on more of the burden of providing those services, those things that keep a culture together, than large-scale institutions were doing. And so we really saw there the difference between what local level people can do and what internationally focused institutions can do. And we knew very quickly which side of that teeter-totter we wanted to be on.
And that makes sense. And I think so many times that starts to happen where our creatives and artists and smaller organizations are burdened with the day-to-day, that they can't fully get to their why, really fully living in why they're doing what they're doing. And I just would love to ask you more about how, I know you said your why is to support arts and creatives to be able to have that freedom or to pursue their why. And my question is, like, how do you do that through Brown Art Inc.? What are the things that you provide, even as your organization, but even as a consultant as well, to enable that ability for creatives?
Sure. We've heard me say this before, Mixie, but I feel like every part of my work is just letting people get to the second thought, the thought behind the thought, the next thought of an idea. I think, so many people out there understand, like, they encounter a problem, they encounter a situation in their day-to-day life, and they have the instant of like, oh, I know how I would fix this. I know what the solution is. And that's great. And that's so important. And it certainly takes a strong, creative, critically thinking mind to have that solution. But I'm really interested in the thought that comes next, right? Okay, you've had the idea. How are you going to do it? What's the next step? What's going to make this even more impactful? What's going to take this a step further from just being a solution to a problem, but make it become a preventative for future problems? And I find the thing that people get stuck on, getting from the first thought to the second thought, is that there's so much work to do in that first thought. There's so much just in like, okay, I have a solution and now I have to implement it. So I have to figure out how I get the resources I need. I have to figure out how to fund it. I have to figure out how to get, people in my local community on board. I probably am going to have to bring on collaborators, stakeholders. I'm going to have to win over a lot of people. I'm going to have to market this idea and make sure people know it's here and it can help them. I'm going to have to problem solve along the way because none of this is going to be straightforward. And that all takes so much, not just labor, but like mental effort, before you even get started on implementing. It takes so much thinking, and so much of your brain in the day-to-day is also caught up in the like, what time do I have to wake up and go to work tomorrow? What am I going to eat for lunch when I get there? Oh, right, I have to pick up my laundry from the dry cleaners on the way home. That's been on my mind all day. Didn't do it. My mom calls it the business of living,
Ooh,
and so much of that is just, it takes up space. And so a lot of what I like to do, you touched on earlier, is this like automation, is this streamlining, is the workflow question of like, how can we make it so that these processes are so intuitive and so automatic and requires as little direct input from you, the director, once they get started and up and running, so that you can have that second thought, so that you get that mental space back. So that part of the business of living doesn't take up your focus anymore.
Amanda, I'm still in that quote from your mother. The business, it is really real.
It really is. Yeah. She's completely correct when she says that. It's a business.
It is. I mean, it's and like you said, the mental work and the space that it takes up to do that, on top of if you're running your own business, on top of if you're still running your own business and working for somebody else, that is a lot. And I just want to touch and get some tips from you on maybe some of your favorite automation kind of tools or ways of thinking when you're thinking it in this automation mindset, because I just know that from like my experience, there have been things that I've been like, oh my goodness, this is, why didn't I think about this sooner? Like I was doing a lot of work and things of like the business of life, right? Taking up too much space. I was like, oh, if I just pass this to this, or if I implemented this into my life, this is freeing up so much space for me to do these other things. And so I would love to hear some of those ideas or some things that you found very helpful when you're working with your clients on like, this is something I just offer all of them when they're thinking about automation.
Sure. So I will say to give you the top level answer first. So much of knowing like how you can streamline this way depends on what you believe technology can do. I know that sounds really simple, but like until you know that like you can automate certain things to like connect to each other, until you know that these things can connect and talk to each other and pass information back and forth, you don't even know to think that, oh, I could automate this, until you understand that virtually everything can, one way or another, can be automated.
Yeah.
It's hard, you might, it's hard to know what's out there. It's hard to start thinking about how you can apply that sort of streamlined systems thinking to your own life. One thing I think about all the time, I'm bi-coastal. So I spend part of the year in my hometown, El Paso, Texas, and part of the year in Brooklyn. And I travel back and forth a lot in between. So I live basically in a suitcase. And something that changed my life was I got, like timer, like smart plug outlets for my apartment. And so now it's just, when I land in Brooklyn and I'm in my car on my way to my apartment, my lamp comes on in my little entryway. So I unlock the door and I haven't been here in like weeks, but the light is on and it's one less thing, you're carrying your bag, you're carrying your suitcase, and I don't have to like kick the door out of the way and try to find the light switch and do it. Like it's so little, but it made a huge difference. Or something else I automated in my personal life is because I'm always traveling back and forth, I don't always know, like I love clothes, but I don't always know where like my favorite pair of shoe is. Like, is that in Texas right now? Is that in Brooklyn? Did I lose that somewhere? Et cetera, et cetera. So coming up with a system where I can just like move things, like representationally online and say, oh, no, I know exactly where. I can't look in my closet in Brooklyn right now, but I've got my little spreadsheet and I know that's where my daisy print skirt is.
Yes.
So I give those two examples because they're really little things and they're not things that people might think that they could automate or systematize in that way, but truthfully, just the peace of mind. If I'm traveling, if I'm in Texas and I'm going to a conference on the East Coast, I know I'm going to stop by Brooklyn on the way. I can pack less in Texas because I know, oh, I have 3 conference outfits waiting for me in Brooklyn. I don't have to pack them. I don't have to carry them. I don't have to drag my suitcase through the Dallas airport. I'm good. I love that. That to me is worth the amount of time it takes to set up these systems. So those are 2 examples. Usually when I'm working with clients, they're not asking me to streamline their closets, although I think I could be really good at that.
I know, right? I was like, spreadsheet for my closet. This is smart.
Listen, I've kept it like, I'm actually like crazy with this spreadsheet because I also keep like how many times I've worn it. Like it's like cost when I bought it, it's cost per wear. Like the economics have allowed me to justify a lot of truly bananas purchases. All of it to say, so when I work with clients, I usually work with their content systems or their digital asset management systems. So we can start to think, similar to how I always know exactly where my daisy print skirt is. You can think about, okay, where on your website does your mission and vision statement appear? And how can we connect those so that when you rebrand, when you have to change that mission and vision statement, you change it one time in one place instead of having to go and look through every single website, every single Instagram post, every single social media bio, every single flyer. You change it one time and it changes everywhere. That's what I'm talking. And then suddenly that part of your brain that could have been thinking, okay, well, I checked the website, I checked my social media. Wait, did I check Twitter? Let me go back and check Twitter again. You can have the next thought. You can think about the next then.
I love that. I love how you connected those, because it's very true that I tend to believe that rebranding or pivoting, we've been talking about pivoting a lot, is scary to business owners because of what you just described, and the work, the lift that it feels like it's going to take to make that shift or make that pivot, instead of thinking, oh, there are systems that I can put in place that allow that not to be the implementation of a pivot or a shift to be so daunting. And so my next question then is really around, like, how do you work with clients or orgs who are kind of like resistant to automation? Because I think that, like, there's a misconception that maybe it's going to be more complicated than it is, or more daunting than it is, and maybe have some resistance, or like we just always, or even like this is the way it's always been, and so, like, what is the process, or what are some pointers that you give to orgs that are kind of scared of that level of automation?
Sure. Well, I think I usually get two main types of resistance. And I'm flattening a lot of, like very nuanced conversations I have with, each client has their own thing. But usually there's two types of resistance that I get. And the first is we don't have the time it takes to set that up. And the second is, but what if I want to change things outside the automation? Like, what if the automation is too generalized or not specific enough for my needs? And so to the first group who say, we don't have time to set that up, I say, I don't think it takes as long to set up as people think it does. Especially at this point in my career, it has to be a pretty fringe case for me not to know how to do it. Although I will say I love working with clients who ask me to do something that I don't know how to do. So far I have not been stumped. So far I deliver.
Okay.
But if you're out there and you think you have the thing that I don't know how to do, I would love to talk to you.
Listen.
So I don't think it takes as much time as people think it does to set up. And I think for me, and this is a decision that everybody has to make for themselves. For me, the thought of saving time later is worth spending more time now. To be able to come up with an evergreen system that is going to save you, let's say 60 hours a year for the next 10 years. To me, that's worth it, tacking on 30 hours of extra work on this contract or on this project. Yeah, so I guess you have to do your own sort of cost benefit analysis. I will also say, especially when I'm working with clients, it's even less setup work for them. For me, it's okay, what do you want it to do? I'll go figure out how to do that, and then I'll come back and just hand you like a user manual. Like this is how you'll do whatever you need to do now. And then for that second type of resistance, that like, well, I might want to come in and change things, or we don't have the sort of website or content management or digital asset management system that can be reiterated. There does require a certain amount of standard structure for a lot of these automations. To which I would say, well, maybe. But with everything we build, there's always a a release valve. You will always have the opportunity to come in and make your own manual changes. I'm not designing you HAL from 2001 Space Odyssey, like it's not gonna
Right.
like seize control and take over. You can always adjust and fix however you want. If you genuinely don't feel like you have the system, even amongst your people, to be that could be replaced by an automation, I would say you either are working in a field that is highly niche and specific. You also are probably also a consultant if that's the case. And I would also gently suggest, maybe you do want a system, even if we don't automate it, even if it's not computerized, digitized in any way, even if it's just a system amongst you and your people, there's still a huge benefit from having something like an old school punch list. Maybe you don't want to connect every place that your mission vision statement is connected on your website. That's fine. You could still keep a list of all the places where it does appear, that we'll know exactly where to go look, even if you want to change each single one manually. There are still systems that we can put in place, even if they're not as robust as technology might allow us to do. And it's about finding that right balance for every client.
Yeah, and I love that you talked about a punch list, because I think that's still a system. Like, I think people think systems and they think, oh, spreadsheets and computerized and I mean, I'm sound like an old lady, which I I always get it, oh, computers and spreadsheets, but I think that it's not even that. It doesn't have to be that intense, but they're definitely like having a flow chart. That's a system, like understanding how your organization works and flows, like, and around marketing, around communication, doing that work and on the front end is great. Here's a question that I have about that. Just before we kind of pivot into another kind of conversation, just on this idea of what you shared about putting the time in ahead of time. What are some things that you just believe that any organization should just be putting the time in ahead of time on doing and putting in place, that will eventually, like, that it just will make their lives easier on the back end? That, like, if I'm starting out and I'm sitting down and I'm thinking about, even like, is it a punch list? I mean, depending on how comfortable you are with your level of automation, but like, what are some things that can be helpful, when an organization is sitting down or starting out, should be putting into place systems that they need to put into place?
Sure. So I'm so happy you said that, because I do get a lot of people who hear that I'm interested in, systems, automation, strategy, and they do think that I'm only interested in like hyper technical solutions. And I mean, I love that stuff, but truly, I mean systems even in the most basic sense. Like, these are still systems, these are still technology. Even a graphite pencil is a piece of technology. We're just so acclimated to it, we don't see it as technology anymore. And I feel the same way about these automations and these systems. A punch list is still a system, like you said, like a flow chart is still a system.
Yeah.
And so towards that end, the first step that I do with clients is always to create that system. And then if there are opportunities to automate or streamline some of that, then we do that. But that's not the go-to. That's the finish line. So what I usually tell, I mean, of course, some of this depends on what a client does or what their target audience is, but I always say intake. So whether you are making like, commission-based ceramic vases, or you are providing, community critical social services in your neighborhood, you should have a set workflow for what happens when someone reaches out to you. So if you're, a commission-based sculptor, someone sends an email and they say, hey, I want this sculpture, I want a sculpture made. I really encourage my clients to have the next 6 steps of that figured out. Okay, you reply to that email, right? Step 1, you reply to that email. What questions do you need to know from them right off the bat? Or do you not want to ask questions via email? You want to set up a time to talk to them. You say, I want 30 minutes to get a feel for their sculpture vibe. So you can do that. How will you book that meeting? How do you work with schedules? How much of your back and forth with clients gets sucked up when you can't make the calendars work? Is there a way that we could streamline that? Is there a tool? Is there a service? Is there a workflow that we can put in place that makes scheduling those really easy? Okay, you have your meeting. What do you need to ask them in that meeting? At what point in this process do you ask for a deposit? At what point in the process do you ask for a final invoice? How are you making those invoices? Who at your studio is making those invoices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like there's so many little pieces in there. And if you have to figure out that system every time you get a client, every time somebody reaches out to you, that's exhausting. You're going to start hoping you don't get any more clients. You're going to like hate when somebody hits your commissions inbox because the emotional, mental work of having to recreate that system. So if we could set it up where, you know, someone sends an email, hey, I want a sculpture, and they get an automatic response that says, thanks so much for your interest. You know, click my Calendly link right here and book a 30-minute, you know, client intake meeting with me. Can't wait to meet you. What if we, you know, you hit a button and if your standard deposit is $500, you hit a button and a new invoice for $500 is generated. That's so much easier than having to think, okay, well, how much do I charge for an invoice? Wait, I don't know where to send this invoice. Wait, I don't know their last name to put on this invoice. Like, there's a lot. There's a lot of little details that you shouldn't have to worry about, because if you're doing the same thing every time for your incoming clients, it can be a system.
I love that because I mean, yeah, thinking about intake, thinking about how you're going to receive clients and how you're going to, you know, process whatever that system is of processing a new client is so important. Just a secondary question to this idea of intakes. Consistency, is there ever a time that you've been like, okay, because of the type of your organization that there's no need for consistency around how you relate to clients? Or is it really something that if you can create a consistent system that you should just seek to do?
I think there are ways to build in consistency in almost every system. I'm certainly not suggesting that anybody like gets one of those like AI customer service chat bots to run their, you know, to run their art studio commissions.
Right.
But there are if you still want to, like, say you're like, I don't know, I feel uncomfortable like sending an automated email to people who've reached out to me. I prefer to write those emails myself. I want them to have a personal touch. They don't all need to be the same. But the most important thing about this process is that people recognize I'm a person, that I recognize they're a person, and we have a unique experience together. That's fine. That's part of your business. That's part of your brand. That's part of what you find to be central to the work. You can still have that. Then the automation we set up might be, okay, you get an email come in and automatically you get something added to your to-do list that says, write a personal note to client XYZ. Or maybe your assistant gets a to-do list item that says, research this person and send thoughts to, you know, the artist so they can write that email. Again, we're not automating the, you know, the person-to-person interaction there. What we're automating is the way that we stay on top of our tasks and the way that we identify what needs to happen so that this personal exchange can occur.
I like that because then it really does connect automation to whatever your mission and your vision are.
Yeah.
And that, like, again, this is not something that has to be an added layer. It really does fit in with all the things that, and again, you are speaking to something that has been a consistent theme through these Meet the Consultants is like taking the time to get your mission and your vision clear, because then these things just support it. Just automate. Thinking about systems thinking is really the thing that supports your mission and your vision as well. How you work supports in, you know, your vision of how you know what you provide. And so I think that this doesn't have to feel daunting or like an extra layer. It definitely is something that fits hand in hand. And so I love that you kind of, that example was so perfect. I want to pivot now into talking about how automation and self-care work together. And so I'm going to kind of dovetail these two questions into each other, because we spoke about this before, just about the frustration that exists for a lot of creatives of color and businesses of color, because the system is so racialized and can feel very overwhelming, especially now coming out of this new era of business and new era of just working out of the height of quarantine. We are still in a pandemic, but there is still a level of trauma that is carried, especially I feel like even more so with business owners of color. Yeah. And that self-care is so important. And I think sometimes harder now to maintain, because I know for me, at least, I went from having no work to having way too much work and saying yes to everything because I was afraid. And so fear made me run myself raggedy and then had to put some systems in place on how I was going to manage my own self-care so I could put my best foot forward. And I would love to hear your way of working and advice you give to clients on how to systems think for self-care in this time. And with their frustrations that they may be experiencing.
Sure. I can see that you've been reading all of my text messages to my best friend, because that's all we've been talking about this week. We're tired. Deeply existentially tired. And I absolutely hear where you're coming from, that sort of fear mindset of like, if I don't say yes to this, no one's ever going to ask again. If it doesn't happen now, it's never going to happen. And I have that's just where my brain goes. I have all the same like bad habits, just bad habit thinking. So I really feel you. For me, a lot of this like self-care systems, the self-care automation, and like my little lamp in the entryway, and my knowing where my daisy skirt is. For me, that all came about because especially during quarantine, I was so frazzled. I had so much to do, and I remember just thinking all the time, like, I wish I just had a personal assistant. I just wish I had a personal assistant who I could call when I land in Brooklyn and be like, girl, turn the heater on in my apartment if it's cold, turn the air on if it's hot, and leave the hallway light on. I don't have a personal assistant. We do have some amazing people who work with us at Brand Earning. But it feels kind of ugly to have like a personal assistant in that way. Because there's, I don't know, I would get all up in my head about like, how are they developing professionally? Right. And so for me, that's when I really started to look into a lot of these technological solutions. Like every system, there was a lot of time and money and labor investment at the start. But when I started thinking about, what I wanted my life to look like in the context of, if I could just ask somebody to do this and they would do it, what would I ask them to do? And that's when I really started to realize, like, I don't need a personal assistant who, like organizes my schedule or, makes my daily like priorities list. Partially because I can automate that, and partially because I like doing that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't need to offshore that task. That stuff makes me feel good. I don't need to. I don't need someone who will, like go pick up my dry clean. I don't need somebody to come clean my house. I like doing that. It's about getting the stuff I don't want to do off my plate, so that even the chores that I do are chores that make me feel good. I think like many Chicana women, I love sweeping. It's very soothing. It reminds me of my grandmother. It feels very spiritual to like sweep the floors. So I don't want a Roomba, Right. What I want is like a really nice coffee machine, so that in the morning I don't have to go out and get a latte. I can make my own latte, And so it was that sort of like sitting down and thinking, like, I can automate anything. If I wanted to, I could figure out like a API system where I hit a button and somebody comes and gets my laundry. But that's not the system that I want. That's not a system that I need. So spending a lot of time really thinking about like, what is going to contribute to my, like, what are the things about my days that just give me nothing, Breaking down cardboard boxes gives me nothing. I hate doing it. I know I should recycle. I care about the planet. I just don't care about breaking down these cardboard boxes.
Right.
It takes forever. I'm not strong, so I don't feel like I feel like it takes me longer. Yeah, so that's a chore that I like to like outsource in so many ways.
I like that you said taking the time to think about what are the things that are in
Mhm.
my day that don't give me anything, that are not
Yeah.
things that I want to be you want to be doing with my time. And I think,
Mhm.
these things are important. I think so important to entrepreneurs and part of an entrepreneurial mindset, in my opinion, because I know for me, like, I don't like grocery shopping. I love cooking though. I
Mhm.
want to be able to cook the meal. I do not want to spend time in the grocery store. I don't want to deal with people. And
Mhm.
when I really did sit down and take the time to be like, what is it about that gives me anxiety about this? I was like, oh, I just don't like these aspects of it. And it takes time.
Mhm.
Um, then it made sense when I sat down, I did the budget. I said, well, when I have to travel to I mean, I live in New York, so that means I got to train it there. Then usually if
Mhm.
it's too many groceries, I got to take a car service back. That's money. That's all money. And
Mhm.
the costs that it would cost, what it would cost me to just have my groceries delivered or use
Mhm.
a service like a HelloFresh to get food.
Mhm.
My whole world changed when I was like, I'm gonna let this service and I'm gonna live within this service to supply my food. That way I can spend time cooking my meals, not shopping for them. And that
I
is
love this example. I'm the exact opposite. I love to grocery shop. Like I can cruise those aisles, be like, I want this, I want this, I want this. But if I
right.
get home, it's not, if I can't just open and eat it, I'm not gonna cook. I'm just not gonna cook. I have this great apartment and my friends were joking that the only weird thing is like where the oven is placed in this apartment. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh, I'm just gonna put a bookshelf in front of it. It's fine. And again, that part of it was for me because for a long time I was like, no, like I'm an adult. The healthy thing for me to do is cook my own meals. That's what grown-ups do. They cook for themselves every night. And so a big part of what I'm talking about is also, required the maturity of being like, I'm 32 years old. I don't like cooking. I don't have to cook if I don't want to. If I'm willing to, adjust my budget so that, yeah, I do get more takeout than most people, I can do that. If I adjust my budget so that I buy the stupid pre-made salads instead of like all the like vegetables that I have to chop, that's fine, you know?
Right. And
And so like adjusting that, I'm sorry,
mhm.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna just keep going because I'm gonna ask another question actually.
Okay. Well, and then the other side of that was also, also having the maturity to be like, okay, well, I'm not gonna have a day that's free 100% of the time of stuff I don't want to do. Again, I'm an adult. I know that sometimes, like it or not, you just gotta smash the cardboard box, take your recycling down because that's what grown-ups do. You don't get to have a day that's free of chores or free of inconvenience. You can't optimize your way to a life that's completely free of discomfort. And even if you could, it's probably not great for you, Like we see what's going on with these like billionaires on Twitter, That doesn't seem healthy. So then it became like a compromise with myself of like, okay, I don't want to cook. I'm not going to cook. But if I want to be able to afford my like, like pre-made salads instead of my like, vegetables that I have to chop, or if I want to be able to afford, like, I go out in the morning and I get a smoothie instead of like making something in the house, then okay, girl, well, then you're gonna have to do your own laundry because you can have one but not both. Um,
Right.
and it takes the maturity and the self-awareness to say, okay, well, I do feel like I get more out of, my morning walk to go get my little smoothie than I do out of, like not having to do my laundry.
I hearing you talk and this thing about budgeting for that, the life that you want, and even in the budget of your business, how often do you work with clients that are where we have to have this conversation of like, what is like setting the priority? What is something that is,
Mhm.
and like, so how, again, what is the conversation like to kind of set those priorities
Mhm.
for what you can automate and what you can streamline, and then the budget for that? Like, what are those
Sure.
conversations like? Yeah.
Well, I usually ask my clients to think about what's going to make the biggest impact on their day to day or on their businesses day to day. And that helps us set priorities for what we need to spend the most time and resources trying to figure out, what's the biggest problem? What's going to change your life the most? And this, I mean, you were just talking about this already, but this part of what I have to say when I say that is like, don't just think about that in terms of money in the bank. That's a big one. And I know that a certain amount of money in the bank can change your life. My life has been changed. I get it. But it also comes down to, what is your time worth to you? What is your convenience worth to you? I was talking about like doing laundry. I can go and I can sit in the laundromat. I could, bring my laptop or bring a book and make that time worth it. But the like distraction and the noise of being in the laundromat it's not worth my time in that way. I would rather spend the money to not have to do that because I feel like I'm still getting more value that way. And so sometimes I have clients that they're like, well, we want to like automate this, we want to automate this and automate this. And one of those things will bring in a little more money. And another of those things is going to give them 40 hours a week back just in terms of staff time. And I always have to say, don't you think with 40 more hours from your staff, don't you think they're also going to bring in more money? Like, don't you also think that you'll be able to like generate new business? Spend more time with the clients you do have so they want to come back to you, think about other things that could be streamlined or improved. So it just can't just all be financial. You can never automate for that in a way that's going to make it worth what it will cost.
Yeah. And so that conversation of really time has to be is actually probably a bigger factor when you're thinking about automation and planning of like, what are the things I'm going to prioritize? Because also this time is going to be given back to me and either my employees to do, like you said, to create more clientele or to create more business for my company or even just time to do the thing that I want to do. I think I find a lot of times that a lot of creatives are performing or creating a product or a performance aspect, as well as running a business that maybe serves their community in some way. And so when you can have the time to do your art for yourself, that's always, I think, a win and a reason to really have systems in place that allow for more time for yourself.
Yeah, maybe you get 40 hours back and you just rest. You just do nothing. What a luxury, and not, again, often when I talk about like wanting to automate, wanting to, strategize, wanting to systematize these things, for good reason, people think like, oh, she's just like on this like productivity kick, she's just one of those like grind set hustle culture. Like, I promise I'm not. I promise I'm not. And for me, it's not about crunching the numbers to like extract the most value from this. You really have to, like I said, be an adult, be mature, be aware of yourself in the world and say, no, I just want more time so I can start my workday at 11 instead of 10. That's a win for me.
Yes. And at this day, I feel like in this time where we've realized that we can work from home, like it is possible. It is possible to have some hybrid, way of working, but that the goal is, yes, efficiency, but also self-care for yourself so that you can sustain whatever you're doing. That's my thing. And so I would love to ask you about sustainability and how that comes into play and how you guide your clients and give advice.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's exactly what I was just going to say, which is that there's no way to calculate it. Like you can't run a metric to say, well, starting getting 4 extra hours of rest a week, increased my profits by, $70,000. Like, there's no way of knowing. You can't treat this like rest, you can't treat this care, you can't treat this sustainability as a means to an end, whether that end is, like greater profit or, increased number of clients or increased like market share or whatever. All you can do is say, no, that's just the life I want to lead. So I'm going to do that. And that's what makes something sustainable, because a lot of the time people think, oh, well, if I automate and I systematize and I squeeze out every ounce of productivity I can, then, you know, I can retire at age 45. Which, like, first of all, probably no, you can't. It sounds like you're gonna hate that. I hate that for you. And secondly, great, then you'll get to 45, you'll retire, and then you'll do what? Do you even want to be retired at 45? What are you gonna do? You're gonna be bored, you know? Like, maybe that's not actually what you really want. And so when you rely too heavily on these like external metrics, like money in, like finances, like clients, like Instagram followers, whatever, it's never going to be sustainable because none of those things really matter if they're not giving back to you. And of course, you know, I get to say all of this from a very blessed like position of like privilege and abundance where, you know, I'm at a stage in my career where I don't have to take on everything that falls in my lap. You know, there are many things now that I can say, like, I actually don't have the time for that. I actually don't want to make the time for that. This isn't the type of work that I want to do. So I'm in a very luxurious position to know that, you know, my bills are going to get paid if I take this client on or if I don't. And so I understand the, you know, the tension that comes from being like, this isn't fully in line with my values or my goal for what I want my workflow or my life to look like. But I also sure could use that paycheck. I'm completely, you know, sympathetic too. And so I'm not trying to sound like, oh, it's easy, you know, say no to things. It's such a breeze.
Right.
But I think if you are in the position where you are seeing a certain amount of abundance around you in terms of money in, you can start thinking about like, well, at what point does more money stop making an impact on my life?
Yeah.
At what point would, you know, 10 extra hours of my week back be more valuable to me than, you know, $300?
Yeah. And I think that level of assessing and reflecting has to happen continuously, because I feel like maybe at different stages of your business or your journey, and you may be in a place where it's like, no, that $3 is going to do more for me. I can give my time because I need that more right now. But I do think that, like, when you're thinking about sustainability and what you just said about at what point does it not matter, to be evaluating that and looking at the numbers, looking and seeing, like, you know, I'm able to do, you know, this level of like output, and still get this much rest. And it's not really, and I'm taking care of my business is doing well. And really being able to look at that, because I think sometimes we kind of hamster wheel ourselves, and, you know, because we want to look like we're, I don't know. I don't know if it's an appearance or feel or just an internal feeling of like, I'm on my grind of whatever that means. And I think actually, a more successful, for me, a place that I feel like is a place of success is when, like you said, I can say no, when I can be like, I don't need that in that way.
There's like an interview with like Lucy Liu, and she's talking about like the money she got from doing like Charlie's Angels or something, and she was like, yeah, you know, I put it in savings, and she was like, I call it my fuck you money, because it meant that any job that she did after that, if she didn't want to do, she'd be like, fuck you, I'm out, you know. And so I love that. I feel that very deeply. I think everybody should have, you know, a certain stash of just like fuck you money. But something that you were reminding me of is I think it becomes just a habit, you know. I think, you know, certainly for myself, there have been long stretches of my life where it was like, well, if I don't wake up and work for like 10 hours a day, I don't know what else I would do, you know, like, and I hear now how sad that sounds. But that was true for a long time of like, well, this is who I am. This is what I do. I don't have anything else, so I'm just going to do this. And it did make me the extremely ambitious and extremely neurotic woman who stands before you today. But it took me a lot of, you know, like emotional journey. It took me a lot of like awareness and maturity and therapy and all that stuff to realize, first of all, you can be many other things to many other people, and they don't all have to be related to your work. But it also took me all of that work to realize that balance isn't rigid, you know, like, I mean, and this is like physics, right? Like you can look at like gymnasts, and when they're perfectly balanced, they're not still, you balance through motion, right? You balance because you're there, and then you go a little bit this way, so you adjust, and then you go a little bit this way, so you adjust the other way. Balance only happens in motion. Balance is a constant renegotiation of like, oh, drifted too far, oh, drifted too far. And drifting too far isn't a bad thing. It doesn't mean that you're off balance. It's just your signal to readjust. And that's, that's something that brings me a lot of comfort. Like I said, I am super neurotic. But also I've kept a journal since I was like 9. And so I'm like constantly like in my journal, like writing, like today I felt like I worked too much. Okay, so I know tomorrow I should take it easy. Or like, I wish it was that immediate. Sometimes months go by and I realize like, I don't think I've seen my friend in like forever. I've been really busy. I should take a vacation. I should go visit my friend or whatever. And so it's, for me, that's the process of like self-reflection that really, really helps. This is also a place where, I can go back to these old entries and realize like, I've been really mad about that dark hallway since I got this apartment. I think I should fix that. So for me, that's something that works. It doesn't have to be journaling, but there is a process of self-reflection for everyone that will show you what your patterns are and how you're feeling about them.
Yeah. And that in itself is another system. Like that's
And
something.
that might be the greatest system of them all,
I'm telling you, I think that, again, like I said, we think systems are some big, yes, but also, especially if you're just starting out, having a regular way of reflecting and assessing, I think is an amazing system. I mean, in my work, even in arts education, we talk about reflection being a part of a lesson even. And I think that us as humans need to, that consistency of checking in some type of way with ourselves and how we're working. I love that analogy of the gymnast. I'm going to steal that too. Thank you. Because I think that's important. We always feel like, oh, when nothing is wrong, that's when I'm in balance. And actually, when things are sick, when you're getting signals, and you're checking in with yourself, that's actually the act of balancing. It's not without conflict or without issue that you feel balanced in your life. I think those things that you are able to see and adjust is the achievement of balancing. And I think so many times, especially entrepreneurs, are juggling so much and don't have ways of reflecting, assessing, checking in with their employees, checking in and having systems in place to do that. So one of my last questions is, what is your favorite kind of outside of internal, a personal reflection and journaling, something that you would suggest for a business that has like a small amount of employees, a way of putting a system in place of reflection to check in, to understand so that they can have that balance?
Weekly face-to-face meetings with your staff, with your team. If you're not like I say face-to-face, it can be like webcam to webcam or whatever, but like a meeting that is synchronous, that everybody's on the call together, where you really do get that moment to say, hey, this is what's going on. Actually, like, there's no Slack channel I can bring this up in. There's no like Asana task where I can be like, hey, actually, like, I feel weird about this, or like, oh, this thing is going pear-shaped and I just need a space to say whatever I feel about it. For Brown Ink, we do bi-weekly team meetings. And we try to begin and end with just, like, not just like a factual, like, where are you on this, but like, how do you feel about this project right now? And, sometimes we have to say, you know what, this client's a real jerk, not having fun working with them. And suddenly when you voice like, I'm experiencing a negative emotion when I think about this project, it's not about, my ability to deliver on the assignments. I think the client's a jerk. I don't usually, we have great clients to be clear. But if I did think one of our clients was a jerk, then suddenly the question is not, how do we make sure Amanda meets her deliverables? The question is, what can we take off Amanda's plate so that she doesn't have to be the one dealing with this mean person all the time, And those are two different questions.
Yes. Yes, they are.
Yeah. I don't need assistance in that way to, meet my deliverables. I need assistance in managing the negative feelings I'm having related to this project. Even if the outcome is the same, that, like maybe my collaborator is like, oh, well, I'll take on the design work then. Or like, oh, let's push that meeting by another week, the work looks the same, but the ability to know that it's a reaction to your felt experience and not your productivity. I don't know, makes a big difference to me.
It definitely does. And actually, what you just shared connects to something that Ronte Coppin shared about understanding how you want to work internally as well as externally. And so if transparency is a value in your company, and you can you need to be able to have ways to be transparent. If reflection and being able to voice your opinions in the space is important to how you want to run your business, then yeah, and having a system in place on how to do that is important and needs to be valued. And so systems connects with values as well, and how you work.
I feel that so deeply. My background's not my first career, but one of my careers was in community engagement, primarily in like art and museum spaces. I still do a lot of that work. And I always have to tell people the first community that comes together around your art practice, around your business, around your social mission, the first community of people who come around together around that is your staff. They are also not just part of your community, they're a central part of your community. And if you think that's different because you're paying them to be there, then you have fundamentally misunderstood. Yeah, you have to treat even your internal staff as part of your community because they are.
That's correct. And that if the way that you value them as a community is going to directly reflect on the community that you say you serve.
Yes, people can tell when something feels inauthentic. And and there's so much like, I don't know, I'm super chismosa, but like if there's any little gossip to find out, I'm gonna dig for it. And then I'm gonna tell my friends, and then we're gonna know,
Yeah, because I think I think now more than ever, we need to understand that your employees, that's your most valuable commodity. And if they're not being treated well, then that is going to not bode well for your business. And
absolutely.
So again, having systems in place, understanding your values, having a system of like living them out internally with your employees, even if you only have 2 employees, even if they're volunteers.
Especially if you only have 2 employees, especially if you only have volunteers. For a long time, Runner Inc. was Raven Ruffin and me. And there were times we'd have to just look at each other and be like, okay, if you think this and I think this, we're gonna have to figure this out together. There's only us to argue with. We never argue, but we would certainly disagree or have different perspectives that would have to be figured out.
Yeah, and having a system of how to bring that to the table, and it's like, again, I think because when we're thinking, oh, my business is so small, or oh, I we're only operating at this level, I don't need to have so many things in place. And actually you do, because you will eventually have more people.
Yeah.
But even now, like, it just makes it easier for you down the line to like say, what happens, to have the thought, well, how would we resolve if we both think differently about a project or have a different opinion about how we want to work? What are the processes that we put in place? And maybe one of the things is like, well, if we can't agree, then we don't take the project, right? Like, but we have a way of thinking through systemic that we agree on systemically, that allows for us to do our work. And again, what I love you say is so we can do the thought behind the thought, so we can dream bigger and think deeper about how we want to grow and impact the communities we want to serve, without being stuck in the minutia of we don't know how we want to. I don't know.
Every email that comes in is an emergency because you don't know you don't know what the right thing to say to this email is. Yeah.
Right. Because you don't have systems in place. And like, how do I respond to this? How do I respond to that?
Right.
Correct. Ugh. Amanda, this has been such a great conversation.
Honestly, like, I knew I was going to have a great time talking to you. I always have a great time talking to you, but like, I don't think you know how badly I needed to talk about this today.
Well,
I needed this talk, so thank you.
I needed this. I just think that this is so important because Well, first of all of our, I'm doing some plugging now because we're wrapping up, but all of our consultants are amazing, but your work, and I've worked with you and, through directly with our organization, ABC, but even seeing, just your way of thinking, even around help desk and how we work. It's just been so refreshing, and the way your deeper understanding of systems fall into the mission and vision, the HR aspects of the business, and for us, like how we manage our consultants, and all of those things all support each other. And your mind, the way you I call it web thinking, the way your mind is like,
I call it Terminator vision. Like I sometimes feel like I just have this crosshair that goes like,
yeah. I see like all these different like things, it's like, but it's all connected because you see the connecting points. It's just so refreshing. And so I'm saying to everyone that if you would like to have, if you don't have this on your team already, which I know, it's expensive to sometimes hire a consultant. That's what Help Desk is for. Right now, we are offering free access to the amazing mind of Amanda Figueroa and all to sit and help you think through, and prioritize systems. Think about your time and budget. What are the values? What are you valuing right now in your business? Even if you're at the beginning, even if you're in the ideation stage, there are ways that you can start thinking in this way, and partnering with Amanda and taking some time for yourself is going to be so beneficial. In this time, we are running, Help Desk has a month left. We are exactly a month away from ending Help Desk. And so I'm going to share my screen again really quickly so that I could make sure that I make this very clear. And no, I think I shared the wrong thing. Let me just stop for a moment. Yeah, there we go. Well, no, that's not what I wanted, but let me do this. There we go. Here is something, again, a little system in place that we put QR code wise. You can scan this QR code now on your screen and sign up for free consulting with our arts business consultants. You can start registering for Creative Study. There are amazing courses through our partnership with Creative Study that allow you to kind of write some things down, get some tools down on paper for yourself in these 30-minute courses that then allow you to kind of enter into your one-on-one consultant time with our consultants and really, so that you can really maximize that time. And so I encourage you to also check out Creative Study and rewatch this video. That the links are all on the site as well. But register today and you can scan this QR code to do it. Thank you so much, Amanda. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Thank you for your time in this conversation. And I look forward to many more. And I'm excited about this last month. And so please sign up.
Yeah, happy to chat all the time, anytime.
Wonderful. Have a great evening, and I'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.